Welcome to Adeptus On Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Adeptus On Air. I am your host this week, Mike Hoffman, and very excited to be joined by Martin. Martin, how you doing today?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me today.
Good. Martin Clapson has a dual role in the accounting world. He is the managing director of a large firm in the UK named Price Bailey. But the main purpose of our conversation today, he is the CEO of IAPA International, which is, and I'll let him explain in more detail later, an organization of advisory firms all over the world who kind of work together to provide better services to their clients. And Adeptus Partners is a proud member of the organization. So again, Martin, I really appreciate you taking the time with your dual role. I know your time is very precious, so I do appreciate it.
No, that's fine. But I love talking to people, so I'm really pleased that you've invited me to be part of this session today. So thank you.
My pleasure. So before we get into IAPA, I want to hear a little bit about you. So born and raised in the UK?
Yes, I was born and raised in a town called Harlow. This is a new town, just north of London. It's called Harlow New Town because it was built just after the Second World War. Big parts of London was badly bombed in the Second World War, so they built lots of new towns in the 50s and 60s. And I was brought up in Harlow, very much a working class, we call it a council house location. So lots of, poverty, you could argue poverty, lots of unemployment.
Sure.
And I was brought up there. And what was unusual for me is that my mother was German, my dad was English. He was in the British Army, and he met my mother when he was stationed in Germany in the 1960s.
Wow, that's something.
And so blood-wise, I'm half German, and I love going to Germany. And it's partly one of the reasons why I love international business, because as a child, I used to go to Germany a heck of a lot, and I often would stay with my German grandparents for Christmas and for Easter and for summer holidays. Yeah. But don't get me wrong, if England play Germany at any sport, I desperately want England to win. So
there you go.
I love
you got your loyalties.
To lose to England.
So you spend your life in the UK. Now you're in Newmarket, which is a town right outside of Cambridge, correct? So it's pretty close to London, about like an hour drive. That's
spot on. Yeah. Newmarket is a lovely town. Cambridge is very famous for the university. Beautiful. If you ever come to the UK, visit Cambridge or Oxford, because they're both beautiful university towns. Lots of history and fantastic independent shops and beautiful parks. And it's just an hour's drive north of London. You can get from London to Cambridge. You can do it in an hour by train. So it's very easy to get to Cambridge.
But it probably takes you 2 hours to drive from your hotel to the train station in London.
Maybe, yes. And I definitely wouldn't drive in London. I would definitely go by the underground, by the train.
Yeah,
it's a lot better. But I agree with you; it's a nightmare in London to drive. And as you said, I live in Newmarket. Newmarket is another lovely town, but it's very famous in the UK for horse racing.
Wow!
So every morning there will be at least 1,000 to 2,000 horses going on the gallops, having their morning exercise. Wow. It starts as soon as sunrise comes up until about lunchtime, and if you stay there for the whole 6-7 hours, you'll see over 1,000 horses having their morning exercise, and it's beautiful.
And is horse racing big over in the UK?
It is, yeah. It's not as big as it used to be, but it is still big. Newmarket has got 2 race courses. It's got the July course and the Rowley Mile course. And they would often have 20 to 30,000 people attending. There's Tattersalls, which is the horse racing, sort of horses, selling horses. So lots of very well-off individuals from America, from the Middle East will come and buy and sell horses. And it's ingrained, it's in the blood of Newmarket. King Charles II in the 17th century would come to Newmarket and would love to see horses, and he really started horse racing in the UK, official horse racing. I mean, obviously there was horse racing 1,000 years ago, people sitting on horses and racing, but actually with rules and actually having a winner and it being recorded, all started in the 17th century. The 17th century in Newmarket. So it's the home of British horse racing. So
interesting.
And Martin Price Bailey, you said I'm the MD of Price Bailey. We have a very small office in Newmarket, and we do look after quite a few clients in the horse racing world. And part of that reason is the reason why Price Bailey opened in the Middle East, in Dubai, because there's lots of horse racing connections to Dubai.
No, sure, with that geographic area of the world, sure. Yeah. So now you've been a managing director at Price Daily for several years, and now obviously the impetus for this conversation is the CEO of IAAPA International. So tell me I guess your career journey, but also the creation of IAAPA. Okay. You know, how it came about, you know, to get to where it is today.
Okay, so if I sort of talk about, I joined Price Bailey as a 19-year-old boy. I was a teenager, and so I've been at Price Bailey for 36 years. Price Bailey was a significantly smaller firm 36 years ago, very regional, and from the very first day I just loved it at Price Bailey, and I loved the job. And then as the years went by, I then realised actually, if I love seeing clients, I love seeing people, I love helping people, businesses, owner-managed, entrepreneurial businesses. And I thought, I don't need to move somewhere else. I can do this at Price Bailey and help Price Bailey grow. About 2007, so that was 16 years ago, I got elected a year or two earlier. Got elected onto the executive board of Price Bailey, and I started just to say, look, we need, because of my German connections as well, I built up a portfolio which had lots of international connections, predominantly in Western Europe, and I said Price Bailey should be part of something global, and I was given the opportunity to go out and go searching what would be a good association for us to join. We wanted to join an international association, not an international network. A network, there's far more constraints. And Price Bailey, like all members of IAAPA, are independent firms, and the member firms are proud to be independent. Adapters is proud to be independent, and Price Bailey is proud to be independent. And we went round at associations, and the one which really jumped out, and which we just, which I and my fellow partners warmed to, was IAAPA. And I remember going to the very first IAAPA meeting which I attended. Was in Berlin. And actually, they then asked me to speak at it, because I do a bit of public speaking on strategy and so on. Sure. And it was just a really good conference, really good members, good people, like-minded. They're all running their own independent businesses, had similar clients who all wanted to grow, and all realised that to really grow a business, having international connections and links would be really important. So within a year, Price Bailey joined IAAPA. I have a strong view that if you want to maximise opportunities from any organisation, you have to give your time, and you have to commit. And so Price Bailey made the decision that we would attend every event in IAAPA, attend every webinar when they started doing webinars a few years later, and that we'd always be seen and be visible, and we'd always volunteer. And as time went by, I then got asked to join the European board of IAAPA. I then became the chair of IAAPA, of the European board, and then I became global vice chair, and then one or two things happened, and I then became acting CEO for 17 months, They were in between CEOs, and they asked me whether I would just sort of look after the IAPA ship.
Keep the sea warm for a little while.
Yeah, and I thought it would just be for 3-4 months, but it happened to be 17 months. But
Yeah,
that's okay. And then we then appointed the new CEO, and everything was going well. And then just before COVID, that CEO left, and IAPA International Board asked me whether I would take on the role of IAPA CEO permanently. And just for any listeners to understand, IAPA pays Price Bailey a fee for me to act as the CEO of IAPA. So I don't get the money; it goes to Price Bailey. But
Price Bailey's still compensating you for your full-time work.
Yeah, exactly. And I really enjoy it. As I said, I've always enjoyed looking after clients and owner-managed businesses. But I also really enjoy helping IAPA member firms to grow their own businesses.
Yeah.
And to use the links and the potential of their membership to help grow internationally.
Yeah. So some people in our firm, myself, Howard Cran, our managing partner, Larry, and Brian, we attended our first conference in the UK.
Yes.
Back in November. And, what stuck out to me was the camaraderie. Yeah. And I've been to other international affiliations back in my day with other firms, and it didn't have that same vibe. It seemed like here, everyone wasn't kind of looking out for how can I help? How can this help me? It was also, what can my firm do to help other members as well? Yeah. And obviously, you have to give and take to be successful in anything. How was that culture built? Because I don't think that's something that just happens. I think it has to be, a combination, maybe having the right members, but also the direction from leadership. So probably a lot goes out to you on that.
Well, no, because it was already there beforehand. So when I said I went to my first IAPA meeting in 2007 in Berlin, that's one of the things which I noticed.
Yeah.
The amount of smiles, and there was real friendships, and obviously there would be maybe 2 or 3 events a year in person, and so people might not have seen each other for 6 months, and there's only an annual global conference, and some members only come once a year to the global conference.
Yeah.
So they hadn't seen each other for a year, and then they're asking about family, asking about business. And then you could see how much trust there was between each other. And I like that. For me, if you want to do well in business, you have to build up a relationship which ultimately comes to real trust. And then once you've got the trust there, that's where work referrals happen. That's where you can be really advisory and help grow. And I could see that in 2007. And as the years went by, my predecessors and I have worked really hard to make sure that doesn't get lost.
Yeah.
And during the COVID years, so when I became the CEO again in sort of February, March 2020, it was a real challenge to keep the connections of the members. There was no international travel for a long time. And we did lots of webinars and lots of just sort of, what are they called? Just phoning people up to make sure they're okay. And is there anything we can do to help? And actually sort of making that little effort to make a phone call to ask, is everything okay? Anything which we can do to help? And 9 times out of 10, they were fine. They didn't really need anything. But 1 time out of 10, you can do something which is little, but it's really powerful. But just making the phone call.
Yeah.
And last year in London at the Global Conference, London was the first global conference since 2019, which was in Singapore. And I was really nervous before that conference, not because it was the first global conference since I become CEO again, but it was because I'd hoped that the culture and the ethos hadn't changed.
Yeah.
It'd been from Singapore 19 to London 2022. That's 3 years. A lot changed in 3 years, and some firms had coped well in COVID period. Other member firms really struggled. And it was really good. And I'm pleased that, the Adeptus members, and and your membership of IAPA is so positive, and that you could see how positive that was. I have got a view though, that I don't believe it's right or to expect members to travel halfway around the world to sit all day in a conference room listening to technical sessions, because you can do that at home. Yeah, you don't need to come all the way to London to listen how to do audit or listen how to do
agreed.
So organising conferences which are having really good interesting speakers, having some member firm speakers well, but also having loads of time, what you could call it free time, but loads of time where people can just spend. So we had events to the Tower of London. We went to the theatre. We had lovely dinners. With the dinner at the Houses of Parliament. But the ability for people to build up the relationship. You can't build up relationships sitting in a lecture room being lectured to. You build up relationships by spending time with each other. So the way we do it, that we have the morning where you have the speakers, and the afternoon and the evening, building up that trust in the relationship, and that's really important. And I
think that was some of the best elements of it. Going to these events, not random seated, assigned seating, where I was sitting with people I hadn't met before that conference. I remember at one meal, I think I had someone from Germany, like you mentioned, on one side of me, a father and a son. And on the other side, I had someone from Poland, and someone else from the US. And these are people I would never, ever talk to. And quite honestly, being nervous going to the first conference because everyone else has relationships. We don't, we're going to be kind of just talking to ourselves. Without that, what I'll call push to kind of separate, I think every firm would have sat with their colleagues, for the most part. And, you get less out of it if you're talking to the people that you just traveled with. So the idea was to talk to people. And, there were some, in some cases, maybe some slight, language barriers and stuff like that. But that's what made it interesting. That's where you really had to focus and talk to people. And I think those dinners, besides the fact that they were just in amazing places, which was like, crazy that we were there. No, they were great. And I got more out of those 2 hours each night than just as much as I did in the conference. And that's not selling the conference short at all. That's just really saying how valuable that time was.
Yeah. And I totally get that. And if you have got a client and they wish you to recommend somebody in, say, you mentioned Germany and Poland, you can say, yeah, I have met, the Polish person probably would have been Thomas, and maybe it was Jürgen with his son from Stuttgart in Germany.
Yes.
It would be great to say, I know Thomas and Jürgen. They're good people, and actually, I've sat next to them at a dinner, and you can mention, you two would get on really well because I know your personality. And that's so powerful, unbelievably powerful.
It's an extra layer of credibility that I've established with my client. And I'm not just looking at a book saying, okay, Germany, okay, call this guy. It's, you're going to call this guy, but I know him. And I have this relationship with him. And, I remember talking to him about X, Y, or Z kind of thing. And it does give that instantaneous credibility. And not only that, it's for us, a great promotional marketing tool and so forth, because, we're a nice sized firm, about 140, 150, but we don't have the desire to be a 500 or 1,000 person firm. Yeah. But a lot of our clients are clients that are used to those types of services.
Yes.
So having this now broad worldwide affiliation is almost the equivalent of having sister offices of our own firm in other countries.
Yeah, spot on. And you should use those offices. So and Adeptus knows that they can, if you need to have a meeting in London or have a meeting in Berlin or have a meeting in Hong Kong, you can use an IAPA firm's offices.
Sure.
Because it really works. And it gives you the confidence to go out. And I always say, and I've mentioned a little bit earlier, IAPA helps member firms grow internationally. That's true. It helps. But it also really helps for you to grow locally, because you can win local work.
Yes.
Who who might not, you can say, look, if you do grow, if you do need help overseas, we can give you those links and those supports. And
a lot of the clients that we get are maybe in their infancy, but as you're talking about their 3, 5, 10-year plan,
yes,
it's oftentimes, well, once we get everything under control in the States and establish ourselves here, we would love to expand globally.
Yeah.
And they now know with us, it's not like, okay, they get to a certain point and we can't provide that experience. We do have a director of international tax on hand here, which is great. But obviously, when you're now talking with other countries' law, not just the US implications of that law, having someone like you in the UK or, someone else, it is so invaluable. You just can't stress the importance of that for those clients.
And it does. And it takes away that uncertainty and that fear. And that you can actually advise clients with international business with real confidence, because you can give fantastic US tax advice, the US picture, and you'd have a rough good idea on how the impact it has. But having someone else there from other countries where that client wishes to go to, that you're giving them full advice, and it's accurate advice, and it's reliable, and it just cements that relationship with yourselves and with all IAPA member firms for longer. And the other advantage of going to conferences, is you just learn. One of the things I always feel when I go to a conference is I love listening to Americans, how they do business. I love to the Australians, how they do business, the Germans and the Dutch and the French, and I could say every single country. But we've all got the same as member firms, and our clients, doesn't matter which country we're in, have the same issues and problems. Whether it's recruitment, whether it's marketing, it's how to grow the businesses, how can we retain our really good people. And there's been numerous occasions where I've listened to somebody. That's where the round table discussions and the dinners, where someone just says something. Say the Dutch member says something. Oh, we do this to help grow our business, and you think that's clever. I wonder if we can. I wonder if that works in the UK. I wonder, and 9 times out of 10, it does. And so there's. I always sort of say, if you go to an IAPA conference, all I ask for is that you go away with at least one new contact, friend, and one fantastic idea. And all I ask is that you ensure that you stay in contact, and that idea you implement and you put it into practice. And if you do that at every single event and conference, the knock-on snowball event to the business is disproportionately fantastic.
The way I looked at it is we all have the same issues, like you said, but we all have different solutions. And the solutions are because A, we're all different minds. B, a lot of them, to an extent, are culturally driven. Whether we're talking about work weeks or hours in tax season, where some cultures, we're not working overtime. Overtime doesn't exist. We're 9 to 5, and whereas the US, it can kind of be, you work and work and work and work until you get something done. And neither one's right. It's just culturally, it's what's accepted there. But you're right. There's ways to adjust things.
You can.
There's always ways to improve your process. And sometimes the best ideas you get, I've always found in life, are from a complete outsider who maybe hasn't thought about it for months, but just hearing your situation and 2 minutes later, well, what about this? And the idea is so simple, but you never thought of it because you're so deep in it.
And I think that's one of the great things, is that what I hope is that IAPA gives to our members when we meet in person the opportunity to share and to listen and just pick up good ideas. Some of those ideas you can't implement in your home country, in your home jurisdiction, but other ideas you can. Or you can, or maybe not now, but in 2 years' time, if I change this and change that, we could maybe do that. And it's taken you away from being bogged down in the day-to-day life in your own office, and just open up your mind to new ideas and new ways of doing things. And that's where I think IAPA is great. And I think that's just as important than referrals coming in and out. That's important. That's the financial today referral of work. But that sharing of ideas and thoughts and being part of something which you feel it's like a relationship. There's that trust there that you feel comfortable and you can be open and you can say, look, we've got this problem and we just can't solve it. You might not say that to your fellow peers in your home jurisdiction, but you'll say that to your friends in IAPA, and then people will just say, well, what about this idea? And I think that's one of the things I just love about IAPA. You can see I think it's brilliant. If we get, and I think it's just great.
And I think one of the things about a good business leader, and clearly you're exhibiting these things right now, is you have to have the ability to be willing to evolve and willing to change. And, change isn't bad. And it's okay if change came from another source. And, an example that at least I can comment here on the U.S. was, how businesses had to change from COVID.
Yes.
And we're still seeing those changes now that COVID is over, even though it's not over. We now offer hybrid work situations for people where they can work some at home, some on the road. Some in the office, some at home. And then I have some people now that I've hired all over the country that work out of their houses. That's something I never would have considered here pre-COVID. But that's, we've evolved and it's been effective now. The pool of candidates I now have all over the United States, where I might have only had a pool of 20 miles from my office if I wanted someone, 4 years ago. So an unfortunate situation there caused us to immediately evolve, but then after assessing it, it worked for us and we kept it even when the situation changed. And what you're seeing now in the mainstream news here is some companies are now saying, Amazon's one of them, hey, we want you back in the office. And it's causing backlash. People are leaving and so forth like that, because as a society, we've all evolved because of this, and so forth. So it's really interesting when you're at this conference talking about how every other society adapts to a pandemic or things like that. And, Zoom calls like this, these were they were non-existent. They were infrequent. I'll put it that way.
Infrequent.
And now I have a couple a day.
Yeah. And
every day.
And it's really easy. And you can see people. And I think one of the, there's two bits where you just said there, which I often say, and sometimes it can be a little bit provocative. I do think there's individuals and there are certain leaders who wish to go back to 2019 as if COVID never happened. And actually it has happened. And as you just said, society and what our employees want and need and our clients want and need has no change.
Yeah.
And we have to be, professional services firms have to be open-minded, have to be flexible to evolve to suit what our clients need and want and what our employees need and want, rather than telling them, no, we're going back to 2019 behaviours. And I do think that the successful firms are the ones who will continue to evolve because of changing circumstances. And there's so many examples in the past where businesses don't change because technology changes or society changes, and because they don't change, they eventually fail. And I think good firms will always have to evolve. And I think our firms, IAPA, has to evolve. That's why we're doing far more webinars than we've ever done before. The way we engage with member firms is clearly different to the way it was in 2019. And that's great. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, you kind of answered my next question a little bit, but I want to dig in a little deeper. As CEO, what is your, we'll call 5-year vision for IAPA? Like, how would you like to see the organization evolving over the next several years?
I wish, I'm not an individual who believes that strategy is about numbers. So I don't have a strategy which says that IAPA in 5 years' time will have 200 member firms in 160 countries. Because I don't think that's particularly important. I think, for me, the importance of IAPA is that my target is that every single member of IAPA is a good firm who engaged. Because for me, I much prefer IAPA to have 100 member firms and all of them are engaging, attend events, who respond to emails straight away, who who are really proactive, then being double the size and have half the member firms
Right.
not engaging. So for me,
How many firms are in IAPA now?
it's just under 100 firms.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things which, since I took over in February, March 2020, it has declined in size. That's partly because of COVID, but also partly because there were member firms who didn't engage appropriately.
Sure.
And therefore, one of my roles was to improve the average quality of the member firms and get good member firms in as well. So for me, it's what I want in 5 years' time is for all the members in 5 years' time to say exactly what you said what you felt it was like when you went to the London conference last year. How I thought. So the culture and ethos doesn't change, but we have more. But I'm not going to put a number on it because I much prefer to ensure that every member firm totally engages. Now, some people say that Martin, you must put a number on it because if you haven't got a number, you've got nothing to aim for. But actually, if there's a number, then you start to dilute the values.
You make wrong decisions and you take someone for a number instead of a cultural fit.
And we don't need to have flags in every single country or city in the world. No, through IAPA and through the IAPA Centre, if there is a member firm which wishes to needs some support in a location where we haven't got an IAPA member, through the connections that the centre has, we can 19 times out of 20 can find somebody because we've got good links with other organisations and groups.
So of the approximate 100 members, how many countries does that cover?
About 70.
70.
Yeah.
So now, based upon your comment before, if you found the right fit, is there an area where the organization does not have a member that you would love to find one if you found the right fit?
Yeah. IAPA is very strong in Western Europe. It's very strong in North America. We could always have some more members in the US, but we've got really good members in North America and in Canada. I think if there was one jurisdiction, one area, Latin America, I'd like us to get more good members in Latin America. We've got good members in Asia Pacific, but I think it's such a growth area globally, Asia Pacific, that I think as time goes by, I think we're going to get more members in Asia Pacific because that part of the world is just growing so quickly at the moment. Obviously, there's challenges there. So I can see Latin America, we just need to fill some holes, and Asia Pacific will grow naturally, I believe, because of the growth of that region. But I would never say no to a good member. Now, obviously, if we've got a member already in that jurisdiction, that can cause a little bit of uncertainty. But often, if you say you have got two good firms in the same city, the two good firms, rather than competing with each other, through IAPA, they actually start to work together with firms. And actually, they both grow together. So, there might be that initial thought, well, we might not get all the referrals because there's now two member firms in our city. But as time goes by, I think they normally help each other to grow, and actually they both do well out of it. But we have to be conscious that we don't get firms in a jurisdiction where we've already got good member firms. So
how many countries, we're going to end this with a little bit of fun. How many countries since you've been in IAPA would you say that you visited?
Through IAPA, oh, blimey.
Approximately.
25.
Okay.
25.
Most beautiful country.
The most beautiful country.
I'm going to give you a few different categories here. So we're going to play a few different, and we're going to make you leave the UK out of this.
Okay, I was going to just, obviously.
Sorry, because I know you're going to say UK.
And do I take the US out of it as well? Because
that's up to you. Can use the US,
you might be thinking I'm being too kind.
We'll leave the US in, but we'll let you be a homebody.
Okay, I get that. The most beautiful country, I would say, and I'm a little bit biased, I love going into the mountains. So the two locations which I love the scenery, has been the Alps in Austria, stunning, and also we had a conference in Calgary in Canada, and we went, and that was stunning. The scenery in Calgary was beautiful in Canada as well. So that,
Okay. Best food.
Best food. Oh, I am 6'7", and I've got a little bit of a belly, so I love food, and I just like so I love all food. I would say the food which we had in Singapore was stunning. So Asian food, I do like Asian food. So that I'd say Singapore conference in 2019, the food was fantastic.
Okay, and I know you always plan some activities and like some entertainment. So which country provided, do you think, the best entertainment that you went to? Or the best, when we were in London, we went to Phantom of the Opera, which was wonderful.
Yeah, that was
So what
great.
was the one entertainment event that hands down was your favorite?
The conference which had the most entertainment with memories, we had a global conference in Miami, and we stayed at the Fontaine. Is it the
Yep.
And just for many of the member firms, the concept of being at a conference at a hotel which there were beach parties and nightclubs. Was very that created lots of memories for member firms, which the individuals in London still talked about it, and they said, well, where's the beach party in London? And I said, well, it's November. We don't have beach parties in London in November, or to be honest, in the summer, to be honest. So you
might have answered my next category as well, and that was the best overall vibe of a city. Like you just felt the energy and the excitement of where you were.
Okay. Let's think about this one. I think Rio was fantastic. Brazil.
I could see that.
Yeah, that was good. The day trips we had out in Rio and going on Casablanca Beach and the trips we had, it was a really good vibe. People were just so pleased to be there, and it was lovely, and we felt very welcome. And we had some, that was good. Yeah.
Okay, last one.
You should have given me a heads up.
The organization. What's that? I'm sorry.
You should have given me a heads up for these because that's fine.
I got to be a little spontaneous. You're doing great.
That's good.
This is the last one.
Okay.
If as part of your requirement of being CEO, you were required to relocate to one of the areas for 1 year, and it was your choice where you had to live for a year, outside of the UK, where would you want to live?
I would say New York, New Jersey. Yeah.
Most people don't say New Jersey when that question would come up, but okay.
No, I just think every time I go to America, and I probably go once a year, I always wish to stop off in New York, New Jersey, and just see what's going on. I just think that the businesses there push the boundaries. I think there's a lot to learn, and if I'm gonna move somewhere for a year, I want it to be somewhere not that it's love. Yeah, I don't want to go somewhere where it's beautiful and relaxing. I want to go there because I want to be challenged and I want to learn. And I think there's a lot which I can learn from being.
Well, New York will definitely challenge anyone, and from a business standpoint, there's obviously so much to learn there. So
exactly, yeah.
But listen, Martin, I really appreciate you taking the time. Just let me know. Talk to me about on social media and websites how people can read more about IAAPA and kind of get more information on it.
Yeah. So IAAPA is the website is www.iapa.net, and go on to the website. There's lots of information there, lots of sort of news items. We regularly hold webinars, and if anybody wishes to attend an IAAPA webinar, just register through the website, and everybody will be welcome. And we'd love to just potential member firms, and we'd love to hear from businesses, because of how we can help them. And my contact details are on the IAAPA website. The centre's details are there, and we're very happy to engage with member firms, potential member firms, and just businesses in general, because we just want to just to talk and to share.
Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time. I enjoyed meeting you in London a few months ago. I love talking to you again today. I just admire so much what you're doing with this organization. I think it's great, on so many levels.
Yeah.
And I can speak on the behalf of our firm. We're just looking forward to, building the relationships even more and, helping each other just succeed in all that we want to do.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, we've got our next global conferences in Dubai in November.
Yep.
So hopefully I'll see you and some of your colleagues in Dubai.
You're going to see some of our colleagues.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm making that one with other commitments, but you're going to see some of our people there for sure. So
I'm looking forward to that. Should be if London was good, I think Dubai is going to be even better. So I'm looking forward to that.
As long as there's less traffic, I'll be good. So
fine. I'll organize that for you. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Martin, an absolute pleasure. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have a question related to this episode or have a request for what you would like to hear, please email us at marketing@adeptuscpas.com. You can also find us at adeptuscpas.com online or follow us at Adeptus on social media. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.